Hello, welcome once again to the Turret of Pleasure here in the Enchanted Kingdom of Hermione. Been sitting around sick for a couple of weeks, just trying to keep myself busy by sort of going into various fields of study. And one of them that I kind of dribbled into was I got back into studying the life and work of Enrico Caruso, which is a weird one because Enrico's not particularly trendy today. And most people in the vinyl community, if you will, don't know who he is really. Well, they know he was famous. That's about it. He was the Michael Jackson of the opera world in 1910s and 20s. But they don't know much about him. And I just was sort of fell down a couple of rabbit holes. And I thought, well, I wonder how much Caruso I've got. Because Caruso's the kind of thing that you accumulate it, if you buy, or in my case, inherit collections from people, there's often, if it's a classical collection, there'll be some Caruso in it. So I pulled everything out, and I sort of started getting into it. And there's a couple of weird things. For instance, this is one of these great records. It's on the Everest label. Everest is a lousy record label as far as quality goes. The sound is usually crap. But they got a lot of neat, weird, interesting stuff on it. And so they're one of those labels you kind of hold your nose, and they were cheap. And you buy them now. But this record, amongst other interesting things, and I am not a scholar on Caruso, but it does have the Pathé discs and cylinders, recorded 1900, 1901. There's 3 of them. Now, cylinders is key because cylinders means he actually was released as a recording artist on cylinders, which means he's the only artist I can think of to have recorded in cylinder format, 78 format, 45 format, 33 format, and we'll get to that, reel-to-reel tape, cassette tape, 8-track tape, and compact disc. So that's 8 formats. I can't think of anybody else who released records in 8 formats. And I'm not counting streaming or any of that kind of crap. So, anyway, this is a useful. It's in good shape too. Useful record to own if you want to, especially if you want to start at the very beginning with Caruso, 1900. This one I'm not really. My German again is no good. So, but it looks to be a sampler of his EMI stuff, and I know as much that here we are, Sweet One, 1902. So this is really early. And it might well even be. Is this the same as that? Maybe it is. Who knows? Again. No. At any rate, again, early stuff, pre-RCA. Caruso recorded for the Victor Music Company, which turned into RCA. So, here we are. Oh, no, they are here, the first 3. Well, there is a little bit of English here. Anyway, that's great. And the reason I like this, again, this is nice vinyl. Look at that vinyl. That is the best. German EMI, mid-70s. That's just to die for. If I could make records like this nowadays, I'd be all for it, because that would be a joy. This is pretty cool. This was really common as muck in the 58, I think. The beautiful thing. Caruso still had a bit of a thing in 58, and it looks to be a pretty good best of. Although again, I'm not an expert on Caruso. So it's got the original inner sleeves. World's Greatest Artist. It's got the crappy Canadian purple labels. They're boring. But and it's still in pretty good shape. The record is cardboard sleeve. It's a big, heavy record. And then this, now we get to some more interesting stuff. So that was sort of indicative of what happened. The LP era showed up. They took the 78s and blah, 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 and they put them on tape and they made LPs out of them. Um, and that one you just saw, the RCA Best of, was kind of tidied up records from when he signed with Victor up until he retired. And I don't know what they did to tidy them up for the LP era, but probably nothing. Probably just transferred them to tape and then transferred them to cut. At any rate, with the advent of the digital revolution, it was decided that since, you know, you can sell an artist over and over and over and over again, if you can only come up with some new innovation that makes it somehow better. And I'll get to a couple that came before this earlier in a minute, but in 1970, in the mid-70s, digital came along, and somebody said, we should digitize all the Caruso that we have. These guys being RCA, who owned almost all of it. And so there came this series of records, of which I have most of them. I got from 7 to 16, the complete Caruso on RCA Victor, and they were a good, he was a great caricaturist. And the covers are great. And they have been processed. These are all by him, I believe. And they've been processed through a system called SoundStream. And I haven't played these for a while. But if I remember correctly, SoundStream basically filtered the scratch out of these and boosted various frequencies and kind of gave it a bit more bass. Because of course old recordings had no bass in them, but they didn't add anything. There was nothing added to it. It was simply very elaborate EQ and denoising. And some people really liked this. Some people didn't like it. The cork sniffers didn't like it at all. And this has sort of become, I think these went from like 78 to 85, and I think they're now regarded by most people that know more about this than me as a worthy thing to do. They did improve a lot of things, but they also kind of colored things. And the subsequent cycle that came out, Naxos put one out, done by Mr. Wade Marston, I believe his name is. And that seems to be the accepted one. It's a little noisier, but it's also a bit more true to the source. And speaking of Ward Marston, sorry, I stand corrected. We have a couple of CDs here that I got. All of these records here, every man jack of them, I inherited when my dear friend Richard Harvey Moore passed away. So they didn't cost me a nickel. So I'm going to make space for them. Also, this CD showed up. Now this was, and this is great, this is RCA Victor in a nutshell. The Recreations. Now this is on Pearl. Pearl is a great English label run by great English eccentrics who are just anally retentive about restoring and preserving old things, and they do a real crackerjack job of it. Their recordings are not cheap, but when I find one in the thrift store, you bet I'm going to buy it. Now, this is the Electrical Recreations. Now, Caruso died in 1920. Just missed Mussolini by it. And his recordings remained as they had been recorded until electrical recording came along. Electrical recording allowed you to do a lot of things that you couldn't do with acoustic recording. And one of these things was you could run a recording through a mixing board and add a thing to it at the same time, and then that could go to a third recorder, which would then, you could essentially overdub. And as people got kind of used to this ability, somebody somewhere figured, Caruso. Now, here's the thing. Caruso was a superstar. 1904, he sold 1 million records. 1920, he played a concert in Havana for 10,000 American dollars, which is the equivalent of about 150 grand. So he was a big, big star. And he died tragically young. Died in 1920. And so his mystique was fairly strong for quite some time, certainly amongst the opera-loving public. So in 1938 or so, he was still, missed. and popular. So RCA decided, hey, this new electric recording process, you mean we can play the old recording and play an orchestra along with it? Because the big beef about Caruso's original recordings was the orchestration was not very well recorded because they were recording into acoustic horns. So this was the well, you get a technological improvement. So what they did, and this makes me laugh. These are not really very good. They would play the recording, the original Caruso recording, and the conductor would get that recording through his headphones, and it would be sent through to the second recorder, and then he would conduct the orchestra and show them when to come in. And of course, if you know anything about Caruso, he didn't sing real straight as far as time went. And so, needless to say, some of these got a little bit out of sync with the original. And of course, in the 30s, they didn't have the ability to EQ the original tracks so that they could get rid of the old orchestra. Because the idea was to supplement that old orchestra sound with a higher fidelity orchestra sound. Now, needless to say, this was really popular, and I think they actually sold a few records. There's 2 CDs worth of these, so they did a lot of them. And like I say, Ward Marston took care of this, and it sounds great. It sounds as good as it's going to sound. And he also did the subsequent Naxos Complete Caruso thing, and that, most people say it's the best. It's probably the cheapest if you want to buy it. And I think Naxos is kind of whatever, but I don't know. I'm not going to go out and buy one at any rate. However, this is really fascinating. And so that was sort of how it sat. And then, after this, they went to they went to 45, and then they went to LP. They really didn't do anything. And I don't know if any of those recreations went to LP or 45, but at any rate, and we were that way until the digital revolution. So the digital sound stream came along, but somebody had to come along and say, well, now that we've got computers, we can actually do that recreation thing way better now. And so along came this CD. Now I paid 20 cents for this. So I'm up, my whole collection so far is 20 cents. This is a attempt by the Vienna Radio Symphony? I think it's the Vienna RSO, conducted by Gottfried Rabi. And what this crew did, and this was, I think it was Austrian Radio did this, ORF, yeah. They said, oh, no. We're going to pull out the big guns. We're going to take the Caruso, and we're going to just micro-analyze it frequency-wise and remove all the orchestra and only leave Caruso. And they were actually able to do this quite well. Caruso's voice was really well suited to the recording devices of his era, which is one of the reasons he was so great. So they ended up with a pretty damn clean, just Caruso track. And then they were able to, of course, this is in 2000, I believe, they were able to give everybody in the orchestra headphones, which I'm sure helped. And they were able to study the recordings, and the conductor, I'm sure wrote in all his markings and whatnot. And they were able to mimic the relative idiosyncrasies of the way his delivery was, which he had some odd things. And you know what? It's a gimmick. It's whatever. It's fucking great. It sounds really good. If you aren't going to be a cork sniffer about it, it's like watching a classic old black and white movie that's kind of not very good visually in colorized color, just because it's a little more comfortable. I don't know. Anyways, I was ready to hate this, and I ended up really quite liking it. Yeah, 20 cents. I might even have 3 copies of this, I think. And I would be remiss if I was going to talk at all about Caruso and not talk about a CD that I bought years ago on the New Albion label, which is an American new music label by a fellow named Charles Dodge. And I heard Charles Dodge's work on a 1750 Arch compilation of speech songs, I think it was called. And they were avant-garde music using speech. And Charles Dodge did these songs on a computer, where he got a computer to actually do all the things. This is 1972, by the way. This is before computers were, anything. But what the opening piece on this is the title song. Any resemblance is purely coincidental. And he's taken a Pavarotti or a Caruso aria, and he's chopped it up using his computer, and he's changed the pitch of various things, and then he's written a piano accompaniment for it to provide a whole new kind of context. And so what you have is this is the final. This was 1990s, I believe. So now that you've got Caruso, in living Technicolor, now we're going to take him and chop him up and turn him into new music, and it's great. Caruso continues to live, even in the avant-garde, which is cool. He's worthy of study. I'm not a huge opera fan. Opera's maybe my weakest genre, but I really enjoy anything that gets me digging into it a bit more. Part of it is I don't speak anything other than English, and that is difficult sometimes. But I like anything that gets me, thinking that way. So anyway, that was it. That's my Caruso show. Hope you liked it. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification button, and we'll get back at you with some more weird stuff. So don't know what it'll be yet. Anyway, thanks and take care of each other. Bye.